Hi guys, my name is Tom Antos and I'm here today in the beautiful Canadian wilderness. I'm going to show you a little tutorial about muzzle flares, and just gunshot effects. But first, to understand it, there's nothing like the real thing. So we'll test it out and we'll actually get some footage of the real guns firing, and then we'll try to fake it. So it's just me literally here with a few, probably million mosquitoes and flies, and rapid fire Polly here behind the camera, and he's going to be also our subject. Before we get into any more of the details, let's fire off a few shots. So as you guys probably noticed in the shot of me taking a few shots, the real gunfire is not really that impressive looking on camera, or most of the time it's not that impressive looking. And instead of the first, I guess, misconception I kind of wanted to talk about when it comes to muzzle flares from guns is the fact that a lot of times people think that there's just only one certain way that muzzles, basically flares, will look in real life, when in fact it actually is a lot of different things that basically contribute to the way that that gunfire looks on camera. The biggest factor obviously is the type of ammunition you use. So if you're using ammunition with a lot more gunpowder, obviously it's going to create more gases and more of a chance to see a bigger sort of a fireball. Also, things like, for example, the gun that you're using, the rifle. It depends, for example, how long the barrel is, whether you have a muzzle brake on the gun, things like that. And probably the last thing that really dictates sort of how gun flares or gun muzzle flashes look on camera are the camera settings too. If you're shooting at a really high shutter speed, the chances of you actually catching the little sort of fireball flare coming out of the gun are very, very little. And the same thing also with, for example, if you're using a really low shutter speed, you're gonna bigger chance of you catching the actual muzzle flare coming out of the gun, but then again you're not really gonna see the shell ejecting as well, and I see other things like that, because that's all that happens so fast is gonna be so blurred. So those are just basically some of the things to keep in mind. So here I'm going to look at two different versions of basic muzzle flare when it's filmed in real life. One has a really slow shutter speed, one really high one, and we're using the SKS rifle, which has a very similar venting system and muzzle brake to a traditional AK-47, and also this gun happens to be chambered in 7.62 by 39 rounds, which is the exact same rounds that the old AK-47s use. We are right now at 1/30th of a second, ISO 100, f is f8.0, and rapid fire Polly here. Show us what you got. Beautiful. And here's the same thing from a different angle. So now we're shooting at ISO 400, f4.0 at 1/400th of a second shutter speed. Alright, rapid fire, show us what you got. Okay, do another one. All right. Now, when you compare it to the same gun, basically, and the same ammunition being shot, but filmed on a much higher shutter speed, at a first glance, it might not look like there's much of a difference, but there is actually a slight difference. The muzzle, basically, glare or the fireball is still not visible. And that's simply because of the way, like I said, the way that the gun, this rifle, and also the way this ammunition is designed. It does not produce a lot of muzzle flare, which is actually something that, in most military, I guess, situations, it's something that you want to avoid. So this way you're not as visible to the enemy. But what you will notice is that when you go actually frame by frame, you'll notice that because we're shooting at a much higher shutter speed, the action basically happens to be frozen. There's a lot less motion blur. So because of that, you can, for example, notice the bolt action moving, back, a lot better than in the version where we shot with the lower shutter speed. And also, for example, you can actually see the shell ejecting. Now, the shell is only really visible there for like 1 frame, but you can see actually the shell ejecting. So here, for example, we have some footage of Paul just, pretending he's firing, and we're gonna take this footage and make it look like it's, like he's actually shooting. Alright, so to do this muzzle flare, a flash effect, you can really use any editing software. I'm using Adobe Premiere, and you can use it basically to do this sort of a very basic version, but again, for most cases it's gonna work. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna just take some basically muzzle flare or some like a photo. You can easily create this yourself in Photoshop, or you can just Google muzzle flash or flare, and you'll find a lot of free elements on the internet. But if you want to have one that has the whole fire and really cool like smoke effect, then the one that I would recommend the most is the videocopilot.net. You can go to his website. It's from Andrew Kramer, and he's got this thing called the Action Essentials 2 pack, and he's got all this cool stuff with like muzzle flashes as well as these shells that I'm going to be using later on for like making it a bit more advanced. So these are just basically like a shot of this shell sort of spinning in the air. So anyways, if to do this very basic effect that again for most cases is going to work great, you can do it right in your editing software. For example, I'll just pick a frame here where I feel like right before the gun starts moving, or just as it starts moving. So this frame is good, and then I'm going to take this muzzle flash, and I'm just going to move it here into place. And you don't really have to worry about tracking for most cases, because this stuff, these things happen so quickly that that you're just not really going to notice whether this footage is really tracked in with the original footage. It's like I said, it's a very quick thing. Now once I sort of placed it here where the muzzle of the gun is, then I'm going to change the opacity in the blend mode to screen. So this, and that's just how it looks. If you want, you can also add a little sort of a blurring effect too. So you can go to video effects, blur, just add fast blur to it, and maybe blur it by, I don't know, maybe 5. So yeah, just so it kind of blends it in better. And that's it. And if you play it back already, it looks pretty cool. Go. Now, if you want to make it a bit more advanced, more detailed, then just copy this footage here. I'm going to use Adobe After Effects. So I'll just take this clip here in Adobe Premiere and just save this. In Adobe Premiere, you can easily export your clips to After Effects. Just right-click or replace with After Effects Composition. And it opens here the clip for us in After Effects, and it has the timeline has all the right settings and everything for us right away, which is very convenient. So what I'm going to do again is I have these muzzle flashes from Action Essentials by videocopilot.net, and I am going to take let's say that same muzzle flash 2, just drag and drop it here, pick again that frame where I think the gun just starts moving, somewhere here, yeah, and put that muzzle flash just so I line it up, and then again physically position it so it looks like it's coming out of the gun. I'll rotate it a little bit so it just kind of looks like it's coming at an angle, sort of like how the gun is. And really, again, because this stuff happens so fast, you do not have to be very exact. Anyway, so then we do this, then I'm gonna also go to the blend mode, and I'm gonna change it to screen, and I'm also gonna add the little blur effect. So blur here, go to effects, blur, and then I'm gonna just add fast blur, blur it again maybe by 5, just there. And now we're gonna take this a step further. One thing, if you compare this to real life basically footage, is that there's a lot more smoke coming out of the gun, but also there's smoke coming out of the bolt action here. It's some of the smoke is you know, the gases are venting out there. Also, you can see the shell. You know, again, depending on whether we shut it at a high or slow shutter speed, the shell will be more or less blurred. But you see this shell ejecting just for one frame. Again, it's something you don't really need to do because it's so barely noticeable. But if you want to be really exact, then that's what you want to do. And then the last thing will make it sort of look like the bolt carrier is actually moving back for that one frame. So again, here in After Effects, I am going to take another, just basically Muzzle Flare flash here from Video Copilot, and maybe pick this one. But what I'm gonna do this time is, instead of using the first frame, which is you know, the actual or the actual fireball coming out of the gun, I'm gonna use the next frame and then on. So I'll just trim this, and that's basically just the smoke here. Again, I'm going to change the transfer mode, but this time to add, to make it even more noticeable. And I'm going to place it here, and I'm going to duplicate it a few times, just so it's really noticeable, maybe 3 times. So now you see that that smoke is just a lot more noticeable, how it was actually in real life. So there, and now I'm also going to take some of that smoke, basically, I'm going to, or gases, and I'm going to add it here to around the bolt carrier area of the gun to make it look like the gases are venting out of there. So let's take maybe this clip here, and again, we do not want to use the first part with the flash, so I'll just sort of trim it here, and we're just going to put it here. Now, because the gases here are venting forward, I'm going to rotate this so that it sort of looks like it's going up, and there. And again, change the transfer mode to add. Maybe I'll duplicate it again. It's really noticeable there. Now, one thing I might want to do is just for one frame, I'll just take this sort of gases here that I added on top, and I'll just key the position and scale of it, and I'll just go back here and I'll just scale it down so it sort of looks like it's getting bigger, and move it here again. So here it is. Okay, and delete the original, the duplicate of it, and let's see, maybe one is enough. Yeah, I think maybe we're not gonna add too much of the smoke. So as you can see, that's how it happens. Maybe I'll move our second keyframe so that the animation of it scaling up happens over 2 frames. So there. So it looks like it's getting bigger. These gases coming out of the bolt. Next thing we'll add is a little shell coming out of the gun. So what we'll do is we'll take one of these 8mm shells, and again, it just happens for 1 frame. So here, or maybe we'll do it like a frame after the muzzle flare, the flash. So we'll take the shell here, maybe, I don't know, pick it when it's in this position, and literally you just trim it right here too, so it's just visible for 1 frame, like there. Now obviously we have to scale it, so here just the scale of it, put it on somewhere here above the gun, make it around this size, and then we have to blur it. So we'll just go to blur, sort of to fake a motion blur, go directional blur, increase the blur length, and we can also adjust the rotation of the blur, so maybe make it slightly here at an angle, and there it is. So now if you were to just go by this clip, you're gonna see, just for a frame, you're gonna see this shell sort of ejecting. Now if you really wanted to, you can add basically the shell maybe up here for the following frame. It's not really necessary, but if you wanted to, you know, will make almost no difference. But just to show you guys, just take that shell again. Maybe let's just move this frame here, and just put it up here. So now when you move it, it looks like this shell comes out and goes up out of the gun, and then it goes off screen. And that's it. And already it looks pretty cool. You just kind of scroll through this. But the last thing maybe you might want to add is sort of some little effect to make it look like the bolt, actually action here was moving back. So it can be done very quickly. I'll just take the original footage, duplicate it. Again, we'll just sort of trim it off for that one frame. So trim here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take that clip and we're going to take our pen tool and we'll just sort of quickly trace this bolt action here. So like this. Maybe we'll copy this part here too. And now as you see, this is basically what we cut out, just this section. And for that one frame, we're gonna now grab this and just move it back. So we'll move it back somewhere here. And let's actually move this, our pen tool, I think, just here to the edge, so it looks like it doesn't go over the receiver cover. And again, to make it look like there's motion blur in there, we'll take the blur, direction of blur effect, rotate it so it goes sideways and just increase it. Here's how it looks. So you just have this sort of a blurry thing in there that's moving. So if you look at it now, it just, you're not really quite sure what's happening, but something's getting blurred there. So it almost looks like this bolt carrier went back and forward like this. And here's our sort of effect. And then really now what you got to do is, for all those frames here that Paul is pulling the trigger, I'm just going to duplicate that effect. And this is how the final thing looks. Go. And as you can see in the final effect, it looks pretty cool. It maybe looks even more or realistic, or what you would expect to see in a movie than actual real life footage of Paul firing. And that's probably because of years of what sort of Hollywood has been showing us and sort of teaching us that sort of what to expect when we see a gun firing, and not necessarily what really a real gun firing really looks like. Now I've seen also many people online doing these sort of lighting effects where the gun basically muzzle flash kind of lights up the person. Now that would be something you would need to do if, for example, you have a shot of somebody firing a gun in like a really dark setting, or maybe at night or just some dark environment. But when we're here outside, in broad daylight, it is really not necessary, because the muzzle flash is never really going to be so bright that it's going to actually end up causing really any lighting effects on the person. So for most cases like this, you don't have to worry about it. And now, like I said at the beginning of this tutorial, the way the muzzle flares actually look in real life really depends on the type of gun and also the type of ammunition that you're shooting, and combined together with your camera settings. So here's how the muzzle flare looks when you're using something with a little bit more gunpowder in it, like a 12 gauge shot out of a Mossberg 500 shotgun. Okay, so now when we actually analyze this footage frame by frame, you'll notice that there is actually a bit more of a muzzle flare kind of coming out of the gun. It's more visible than versus the footage of the SKS firing the 7.62 by 39 round. But really, when you look at it, still, it's not, the muzzle flare is not so big as sort of what you would expect to see in movies. And really the reason is because in movies, really there is no projectile, there's nothing else really blocking, I guess, some of those gases coming out, and the blanks that are being fired in films are literally designed to create as much basically flare, and fire coming out of the nozzle so it looks really impressive. So really, at the end of the day, I would say, when you're trying to do these sort of gun effects or any kind of the effects in your film where you're simulating in real life, you don't always want to be so accurate that you're really portraying things the way they are in real life, because a lot of things in real life just aren't as impressive, and they don't look the way that you would expect them to look in a movie. And that actually includes the muzzle flares too. And now that's not to say that real guns basically never produce actual real big noticeable muzzle flare. Here's a quick shot of Paul firing 3-inch Magnum slugs.
Woo!
So again, you know, if we sort of go frame by frame and analyze this footage, you'll notice that the fireballs, you know, coming out of the gun are actually really big and really impressive looking. And the reason for that is, you know, again, it's simply because the 3-inch Magnum slugs have a lot more gunpowder, and because of that, a lot more kick, and, you know, produce a lot more, you know, gases versus the, you know, the 12 gauge 2 3/4, you know, shots that, you know, Paul was using before. Now, if I actually, for example, take that same ammunition, that same, you know, shotgun, but film it at a much higher shutter speed, you'll notice that then the muzzle flares really don't show up, and that's because the chances of you catching, you know, that muzzle flare, you know, at that exact same moment, and, you know, is really much harder, simply because your exposure is a lot quicker.
All right, rapid fire, Paulie. Show us what you got.
Let's do this.
Alright, so what do you think, Paul? Are you enjoying this experience?
Not really, the mosquitoes are eating me alive.
But when you want to shoot some guns, there's nothing stopping you, right?
Overall, yeah, I'll shoot guns anytime.
Alright guys, well, you gotta thank Paul here for sacrificing himself, getting 1,000 mosquito bites, so we can do this tutorial for you.
Yep.
Alright, thank you guys for watching. Hope you learned something from this video, and as always, if you want to see more filmmaking tutorials or watch some of my films, then check out my website at tomantosfilms.com.
Okay, I think I just swallowed a mosquito or something. Yeah, in case you were thinking of coming to the northern Canadian wilderness in the middle of May, you might want to think about it again. Or you might want to think about investing in a mosquito repellent, because it is honestly crazy. When you come in like August, September, it's beautiful out here, but right now there's literally like thousands, if not millions, of these mosquitoes just literally swarming around your face. So kids, be aware. So this is what it looks like after we've been attacked and bitten by the...
This is the sacrifice of going and shooting guns in the woods. This is a sacrifice.
Sacrifice. Look at him. Look at him.
Holy shit.
This is my arm. This is after holding the camera for like a few minutes.
These are Canadian killer mosquitoes, is what they are.
And I just say it itches like crazy. Hold on.
You gotta cut that seed, that's for sure.